Give God 90 Radio on Demand. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90, and I thank you so very much for joining me for just a little while today as we look at something I've discussed earlier. I looked at it when I said there's a battle I don't really want to fight, and it keeps coming back and keeps coming back, and I do my best to knock this down, but people keep asking, and I am going to keep knocking this down. But before we get into that, I want to thank everyone once again for all your support, all your love, all your prayers, all your good wishes, all your comments, all your shares, all your likes on all the platforms that we use. This goes out to a lot of different ways. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Tumblr, we're on all kinds of things out there, including a new one just for you folks who are diehard Android users, okay? Podcast Android, or I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is, but you can listen to it on that as well because Spreaker will link to that, and it's supposed to carry it right on in there and be ready for you. Other than that, you can download the Give God 90 app. It's absolutely free for your Apple or your Android device, by the way. Somebody else has paid for it, so you don't have to. And for all the new folks, that advertisement was for you. Everybody else kind of knows about that already because I try and remember that every time I introduce a broadcast. The other thing I want to mention, and I know, on Mondays I get into a little more detail, a little more depth, goes around the world a little more, but I want to publicly thank Crossroad Church for providing a venue for a Hebrew class, and it's Introduction to Hebrew. Very, very basic. We're teaching adults on a third grade level. Well, I say we. I'm not teaching. A couple other people are who are more knowledgeable than I am. They are very good at what they do, and they're really, really good at piquing people's interest to keep them going. They can get you started, and they can give you a basic working knowledge, but it's up to you to continue on and learn. So that is available through that program. There are a lot of places out there. If you're interested in foreign language, I would suggest not doing it on your own like I tried to do. Go ahead and take a class. Get the, if you don't have a class in your area, the audio CDs, there's programs on YouTube, there's programs on other outlets through the internet that you can learn that from. Don't be discouraged. If I can, you can learn it. You can use that knowledge then to go back and look at the original language that's in the Bible, and you can say, that's where they're getting that from. That's what that means. You can dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth that is revealed in the words of our Creator. Okay. For where I want to go today, for my Jewish listeners, please bear with me because what I'm going to be discussing comes out of the Gospel of John, okay? But there's a lot of things here that we got to cover and some things that's just irritating me every time I hear it. One of the things that really grates on my nerves, probably more than anything else, is when I hear somebody use the phrase, well, God owes me this much. Folks, God doesn't owe you anything. You owe Him. Let me say that again. Your Creator does not owe you anything. You owe Him. All right? He is the one who made you. Your very existence is because somebody long time ago spoke and things began to happen. And it began to happen in such a way that organization came out of chaos. Life came from absolutely zero, nothing, emptiness. And today we live in a world that was not made by us. Okay? It was made by the voice and the will of your Creator. It's that simple, straightforward. He doesn't owe you, you owe Him. Each and every one of us owe our Creator everything we have, because without Him, we do not exist. Now, that being said, there is 3 chapters in the Gospel of John that are often taken out of context. Okay? It mentions a few times, and it depends on the translation, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But it mentions in there, if you ask the Almighty for something, okay, and you say it in my name, as Jesus or Yeshua proclaims, you're going to get it. And for too long, pastors have been saying, well, if you ask for it and you believe you're going to get it, you're going to get it. All you have to do is ask. That's not the case. That's not the intent. That's not what it says. Quite literally, it is what it says. But the implication here is that when you ask, you are going to be in union with what the Almighty desires for you in your life. In other words, if you are living the way He's designed you to live, you're not going to ask for something outside of that. Let me say that again. If you are living the way your Creator designed you to live, you're not going to ask for something that is outside of the way you're living. You're not going to ask for something that is going to make yourself appear bigger than God to other people. In other words, if you ask for healing for someone else, it will glorify the Father. It will not glorify self. Do you see where I'm going with that? If you are asking for an improved situation, it will glorify God. It will not glorify you. All right? That is about as simple and plain as I can make it. And people continually ask, well, I've got to find a way to, accomplish something. Usually with what I hear, it's, I've got to find a way to pay my bills. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Well, what are you doing that's outside of the way you're supposed to be living that's causing you these extra bills that you have? What is it that you're doing outside of the way you're supposed to live that's causing you grief? What are you doing for yourself that is self-destructive? How are you hurting yourself? Do you see where that all comes in together and how that all plays together? I hope you do, because that's as simple as it is. If you're doing it for yourself, the Almighty's going to look at you and say, I don't think so. If you're doing it to bring glory to Him, He's going to say, yeah, but let's do it this way, maybe. If you truly are living the way you're supposed to live, and doing the things you're supposed to be doing, here's the thing. Are you ready for this? You're not going to be asking for anything that violates God's will. Okay? It's pretty straightforward there. If you're following His instructions, you're going to know what His will is. You're going to be able to look at a situation and you're going to say, yes, this person's sick. This person needs to get better. Let's find a way to accomplish all of that while making sure that the Almighty is the one that we know is sponsoring this healing. We know that God is directly involved and He is going to get the credit. He's going to get the glory. He's going to get everything that He deserves out of this. Because if we try to do it for ourselves, if we try to say, well, I can heal this person. No, you can't. If you try to say, I can improve this situation. All I have to do is push this button. No, you can't. No, you can't. I guarantee it. It's going to blow up in your face. every time. And you're going to look around and you're going to say, well, God owed that to me. No, he did not owe it to you. You owe it to him to do whatever you do. Make sure it glorifies him and not self. Okay? I don't know how many ways and how many times and how many people I have told this to. They come to me and they say, you know, Jerry, I've tried it this way and I've done it. What am I doing wrong? And practically every time my answer is, why are you doing it? Not how are you doing it? Not are you making sure this is right? But why? Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to improve just your own situation? You know, you can improve your life very easily by doing the things that you're designed to do. But when you do that, it doesn't stop with you. It affects everybody around you. It really is contagious. All right, that's the best way I can describe this. If you're living the way you're designed to live, and people see an improvement in your life, they're going to want to catch whatever it is you've got, because they're going to look at you and say, you know what, a few weeks ago, you were a sad person. A few weeks ago, you were a sick person. A few weeks ago, you were this or you were that. You were some negative adjective, okay? Now, they're going to look at you and say, something's changed. Something's changed. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. But something's changed. Now, you are a positive adjective. Hope that made sense to all my English grammar people out there, all right? So if now that you are following God's instructions for your life, you're a positive influence on yourself and on others, there are going to be some people who see that as a negative. And they're going to say things like, well, you're just doing it. You're trying to earn your way into heaven, ain't you? I know you. You're being legalistic. You're just this. You're just that. No, you're not. You're doing the things you are designed to do so that you can have a positive influence not only on your own life, but on the people around you. Sometimes being a positive influence on negative people creates a spark. Did you know that? When you take electricity and you put a positive and a negative together, and you touch those wires, you get a spark. Sometimes it's a big spark, sometimes it's an explosion, but you get a spark. When you are a positive influence on negative people, you're going to get a spark. And you need to be careful about how big a spark you make sometimes. You need to be careful how much positive influence you push on somebody. Notice how I said that. You need to be careful how much of a positive influence you try to push on someone. What you need to really do is be a positive influence without being pushy. Oh, I just said it, didn't I? You got to be a positive influence, but you got to want to make the other negative influence be attractive. You've got to be such a powerful influence and such a positive influence that all the negativity in their life evaporates. When you can do that, now you can accomplish something. You can control the spark when you do that. You really can. You can short circuit that person and make them rethink their entire lifestyle. And that's all it takes. You first have to be doing things properly, though. And by properly, I don't mean you've got to be, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've got to stop and do such and such and such and such. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to be following the instructions that the Almighty is giving to you. Most of those we can find in Scripture. Most of them we can find in Genesis through Deuteronomy. But sometimes we're given specific things to do. You remember Jonah? I've talked about him a lot. I associate very closely with Jonah because there's times I'm supposed to go do something, I don't want to do it. And I'll try to put it off or get out of it or finagle around it, but I can't. And the reason I can't is because I've said, okay, God, if you really need me to do this, you just keep pushing. I'm going to push back sometimes, but you just keep pushing. I'll get there, and I will be there, when the time is right for you, not when the time is right for me. Because he knows there's certain things I don't like to do, and he will start nudging me in that direction. And he nudges me and nudges me and nudges me, knowing that I'm going to push back a little bit. But when I get to where I need to be, it's at his perfect timing, not my time. He knows me well enough that he's got to do that. Parents, a lot of times, they know their kids, and they will start calling their kids for supper, 15 minutes before it's on the table, because it takes those kids a while to get together and get to the table. But when they do, supper's usually ready. Sometimes husbands and wives have that same kind of a tug-of-war a little bit, where, maybe one enjoys going somewhere and the other one's like, yeah, I'll go because you like it. Yeah. So when it comes time to get ready for that, one of them's ready, an hour ahead of time, and the other one's just getting in the shower or getting dressed or doing whatever it is that they do. But they're there, but they're kind of dragging their feet. So, that being in mind, you always tell them, you might not have to leave, until a certain time, but you always tell them, you give yourself that 20 or 30 minute time span where you're going to leave at such and such a time, and that way you hope you can get out of there when you really need to. You see what I'm saying? You got to time these things out, because the other one's going to push back. It's the same thing. We do it all the time with our Creator. He knows us. And when he starts easing us to something, and then he starts pushing a little harder, pushing a little harder, pushing a little harder, and we're pushing back, we always get where we're going at his perfect time. Even though we might not want to go, we're there at his perfect time. Any other time in history, any other day, any other whatever, when Jonah started to walk through Nineveh, it wouldn't have worked. But because God knew what was coming, he made sure that everything was in place, including that fish. He made sure everything was in place, including the hearts of the people in Nineveh, to receive his word at his perfect time. We owe our Creator everything. From the very breath that we take, to the very time that we have, to you name it. The money we have or don't have in the bank, the food we have or don't have on the table. Did you hear what I said? We owe him not only for our blessings, but we owe him when he's trying to get our attention. Because when he's trying to get our attention, he's trying to tell us something. Sometimes he will use worry. Sometimes he will use hunger. Sometimes he will use anticipation and anxiety, because he knows that in those troubled times, that's when we're more apt to say, okay, what am I doing that I need to correct? What am I doing? What didn't I do that I should have done? We start questioning ourselves, and we question where we need to be. We question how we need to be doing things. I've heard that over and over and over. A friend of ours tells a story about one night, him and his wife drank coffee while the kids ate. And he's like, I don't know what I got to do. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But you know what? The next day, things showed up. Things showed up. They had something to eat. And it was all because he said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I need some help. I hear from a lot of people who have been, I'll just flat out say it. They have been addicts of drugs or alcohol. They have been addicts of other things. I have talked to people who have been in really, really bad health situations, and they say, as long as I was trying to do it myself, I never got it done. It wasn't until I stopped and I said, I can't do it by myself. That is when their help came. We don't expect God to do anything until we ask. And we often need to ask for the help that we need. There's a lot of situations I get into when I say, you know what? I'm not exactly sure what I'm seeing here. And I have to stop and say, okay, Father, you tell me what I need to see here. What you know how you want to resolve this situation. I don't. But I know I'm supposed to ask you how to resolve the situation. And you need to work in here. See, sometimes I don't need to know what's going on to know that he's going to work in this situation not to benefit any individual, but sometimes to benefit a group, but always, 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 always to bring glory to him. Because when we are willing to say, I don't matter, God doesn't owe me anything, it's all for him, that's when we can do things. That's when we can achieve things. That is when we won't ask for anything that's outside of his will, and we recognize what we need comes from him. The good stuff, the bad stuff, all of it. Sometimes we need to be straightened out. Sometimes we simply need some understanding. Sometimes we need some insight and some revelation, but always we are going to be looking for whatever we need to come from the Almighty and not from each other, not from ourselves. I can guarantee you that the times that people have helped me out, they've been sent directly by God. I said on a Thursday night live that we do, that I know my grandmother's prayer must have been, Lord, you got to find somebody to straighten this youngin' out. I've heard her say it. Sitting right in her kitchen, shaking butter. You know, she used to make butter in a mason jar, and she would sit there and shake it in her lap. And that one day, I don't know what I was doing, but she said, I think I was about 13 or 14 maybe at the time, maybe 12, and she sat there shaking his butter, and she says, Lord, you got to send somebody to straighten this boy out. I've heard her say it. That was her prayer for me, and it must have worked. It took a while, but it eventually worked when his time was right. Not when my time was right, not when my grandmother's time was right, but when the Almighty's time was right. Folks, does God want you to have nice things? Yes. Does he want you to have a full belly? Absolutely. Does he want you to be warm? Yes. Are you doing the things that will bring that to you? I know a whole lot of people. I get messages from people outside of the United States who hear this. Okay? And they tell me that at certain times they might not have electricity for weeks at a time. They might not have running water for weeks at a time. They might not have food for days at a time. And they survive. And they are content being where they are because they know their situation. Now, they realize where they are, that some of these folks can't get out. Okay? They can't just pack up and immigrate to another place. They can't just pack up and walk away from where they are. They're stuck in a situation. And they realize that they're stuck in a situation for a reason. And sometimes that reason, at least one time that reason has been to bring an oppressive military person to the belief that it is not Allah that's defending him. It's the creator of the universe that's defending him. It's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And yes, there is a difference. Not getting into that right now. They found a way to bring a foreign, oppressive military personnel to the belief that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob stands with his people. And he opposes those who oppose him. That's power. That's power. These folks recognize what they can do. These people are so willing to put their faith and their lives on the line every day. Every day. You know, I'm not saying that there aren't people in free countries who abuse that opportunity. But let's face it. How many people go to church on Sunday and wake up Monday morning and walk into a situation where less than godly things are happening? How many people might even go to church on Sunday or Saturday or Friday and they do something just a couple hours later that's less than godly, and you expect God, and you think God owes you for going to church? God doesn't owe you for going to church. God doesn't owe you anything. You owe the Creator everything. This whole concept of if you ask for it in my name has gotten so twisted out of proportion that we don't understand it, especially in the United States. If we will stop and be willing to say, I'm going to re-examine everything I got. I'm going to look at my life, and I'm going to line my life up with what the Almighty has planned for me and what He has a desire for me to do. Now, you're going to understand that when you ask for something, it's going to be something that the Almighty already has planned to offer. That's the difference. That's the difference. There are TV evangelists, out there just shouting, you've got to believe that you're going to receive that new car. You've got to believe that you're going to receive that money in the bank. You know what? The Almighty does not magically put money in your bank account. The Almighty does not magically put a Mercedes-Benz in your driveway. The Almighty does not magically put, food on your table. But what He will do is He will work side by side with you to accomplish those things. He will work side by side with you. The New Testament calls this yoking together, being, working together. And He says His yoke is very light. He carries the most weight. But you've got to be willing to put forth an effort. You've got to be willing to put forth an effort. You cannot sit and do nothing but expect and still expect everything. You have to put forth an effort. I know a lot of people who keep saying, well, I've been trying. Well, what have you been doing? What have you been doing? All right. Enough of my rambling, enough of my ranting. I'm telling you. I am telling you. Please, please, please listen. When the Almighty gives you a job to do, go do it. When you say, Father, how do I need to do this? How do I need to accomplish this? He's going to give you the information you need. All you have to do is go do it. And He will provide that way for you. Your path will be not necessarily clear, but you will know where to start. You will know where to start. You will know the direction you need to go. You will know what needs to be done. When you get where you're going and you don't know what to say, don't speak on your own. Ask, Father, what do I need to, how do I decipher the situation? How do I look and see what's going on? He will tell you. Quite often, the words will come and you won't have a clue what you said. I don't know how many times I have gone to places and I've spoken to groups of people, and as you're mingling with folks as they're getting ready to leave, they will say, "That's exactly what I needed to hear. I needed to hear you talk about this," and I have no clue what I said. Guarantee it's happened to me too many times. But every time it happens, I'm still amazed. I am still amazed. And each and every time that happens, I will ask the person, well, what did I say? What did I say that hit you, that you needed to hear it? And the answer far too often is, well, I can't exactly explain how you said it. And then they might say something that I know I didn't say. And I can guarantee you that's nothing more, I should say it's everything, that the Holy Spirit has taken what I said, and the Holy Spirit has mingled those words, and by the time it reached the ears and the hearts of the people who needed to hear what I said, He's changed it to mean exactly what He needed them to hear. Don't think that because you're not a good speaker, don't think because you're not a good person, that the Almighty cannot use you. Because you have the power to change. You have the power to ask for help. You have the authority to say, okay, God, how do I work with you to accomplish what you want for me? How do I work with you to accomplish what you want for me? Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have understood what I'm trying to say. If you don't take anything else away from what I've just said in the last 30 minutes, please, it's not that God owes us anything. It's not that we can ask for anything in the universe and expect to receive it. When we ask, if we're following His instructions, we ask for something He's already planned to give. That's just the way He works. Until next time, have a blessed